Okay, so once your heart topper has completely dried, again, it's just a thin layer you put on here. You don't want to make it too thick because it's going to be quite weighty on here. Even though these are quite delicate ruffles, you just want to make sure it's thin. And again, as long as it's it looks perfect-ish, it doesn't have to be absolutely smooth, because the ruffles are going to be covering over any little dents that you've got on your topper, as you can see here. Okay, so once this is set, you're ready to start applying the ruffles to it. So you need to get one of their ribbon cutters here, and you can see that I have, I'll just quickly undo this if I can get it undone. I've got the very small one in there. Then what I've done, I said normally when you use this, you use it that way around, but I've turned it in to make this a little bit wider because these are too wide for what I want it for. And just pop that end on there. So don't do it up too tight. So once you get tight, just release it a little bit so there's a bit of movement, and then just cut your strips. Press down quite hard so it gets nice and clean, and just wipe away any excess that you have there. Pull that off. And then you want to lie them on a foam pad. So as I'm using Saracino, I can get away with probably having about 4 strips here. So 3. Oh, I don't think this one's going to be long enough. Oops, there we go, to get rid of that one. So the next lot of paste I have covered with cling film, so that when I've done these ones, I can cut some more strips out on here. So then you want to just get your ball tool and just go along these edges here. So just right on the tip, all you're doing is just softening the edges a little bit. Just roll the ball tool, don't give it too much of a thrill. So, a bit of fluff on there. Okay. So then get your marzipan tool, or you can use this one as well. I prefer to use this because it's nice and straight with it. It's quite curved there. So then just fold these over. So you're folding it in half, and you're just gently pressing down. You don't want to press these down too tight because you don't want this to seal. Like that. And the next one. So okay, and then just take the tool. What you want to be doing is just running your finger along like that. So one part of the strip is standing up and the other is lying down like that. So when I first did this heart top, it's from one of my award-winning cakes. I used the Renshaw flower modelling paste, that's what it used to be called then. But I found they've changed the recipe, and I use Saracino modelling paste now because I've still got that flexibility in it. It's got quite a bit of movement going on there, whereas the Renshaw one dries out too quickly. Okay, so now you've got those there. And then bit of glue. Make sure you go right to the top there. Okay. I'm going to keep this nice and still as well for you. And then try and hold it like that so it's keeping it in place. Take it down the middle. Okay. And then just use your thumb or your finger to make sure it's nice and attached to the heart. If it has moved out of place, you'll need to move this around quite a bit. Just lift it up, take it down like so. and then so you can see that's come down here, so that's where you want to get your scissors, and you want to be cutting like that. So I'm just taking that up like that, and I'm just going to pull this down a little bit more because it is nice and flexible. You can get that movement in there as well, so I've got it done like that, and then just shake that like that, so take that off a little bit more. Now because this is soft, you are going to get quite a bit of movement until it's set. So just get my knife, where do I put it? So it's the middle there. I'll get the heart here, it's the middle, so I just want to bring that over a wee bit more. There we go. Put it on there. With my scissors. Now these are just like a little pair of nail scissors that I have just for in the studio. Make sure that's nice and tucked on like we've got here. See? And then we put another bit of glue. So pick up your next one. Just use your fingers to guide it in place. Like that. Get right down there, get that tucked on as you can see there, look. Like that. Pull that away there. See here. At the top, just get your tool in just to press that in, and you can move that at the same time. Just cut that in there. Cut that. So you can see the start of the ruffles coming on here. So that, I'm just going to tweak that over a little bit. So you can see that's curving a little bit there, curling over. So what I'll do is I'll just take the scissors and I'll just trim off the end. Get my harvest pot. Okay, that's the first two. Then get another one on. Okay, that's all it is having your strips like this and adding them on. Like so. So you want to have a bit of a gap, not too much of a bigger gap on here, and just run your finger down so that you are getting it in place, and take it up to the top, round, like that. Bring that over a little bit, just cut that there, and you can see that has moved already. So what I'll do is bring that, just pinch it over a bit, you can see, turn it over so you're in line with the other two pieces. Let's clear that away. There. And then go down to this bottom bit here, making sure that's nicely attached. Doing the same thing again, just trim in line so that you're halfway. Go right up to the cake pop stick while you're here, and then just bring it, curl it around just a wee bit. with the glue from there. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to curl that round a bit. You'll tend to find you have to do this little bit when you come to the bottom and the top, just so that it has that natural curl round. And then just use your tool just to put it into place. Okay, so you can see it started there. All right, so we'll get some more of these rolled out, ready for me to put onto it. So they will keep moving, so all you need to do is just keep pushing them back in place. And you'll probably find that you might damage it with your hand as well, but because it's Saracino, you'll be able to move it and put it back into place, like so. The reason that I don't use a tiny palette knife when I'm going down through here is because it's very thin at the end here, so it's going to mark it, and when the paste is dry, these marks will show up even more. So this is why I use something like one of the plastic tools, so we can get it in. I can just see that's pulling over again, just like it did beforehand. So I'm just going to take the scissors over and just trim like so. Okay. So get some more rolled out. Okay, so the other one didn't get put on because the paste broke. So once this is done, nice and set, as you can see, this is what we put on yesterday, as in 12 hours ago. It's ready for me to put the small layers on it now. So I've cut out some strips ready to go. Just go down the edges, just like before. It's just to soften them, like so. Completely flatten them. I'm just going to trim off the edges bits here and there, and then just fold them over, doing exactly the same as what we did for the first few pieces that we put on there. Remembering not to press down too tight, or too hard should I say, because you want to be able to lift this up again. Now this paste that I have here is a piece of the Saracino modelling paste that I had rolled out yesterday, and I just covered it with cling film so that I was able to use it again today. So I know, because I've used Saracino modelling paste for such a long time, I know that it doesn't dry out. So probably in say about 3 days it would be too dry for me to move, because you still need to have it quite flexible to move, to be shaping over the heart, as you can see here. So that's one of the advantages of using Saracino flower modelling paste, should I say. So it's there. And as I mentioned yesterday, I did or as I mentioned previously, that the Renshaw one dries out quite quick, and quite a few of the modelling paste do tend to dry out quite quick. And it's just about finding which one that you prefer to work with and what works for you as well, because what works for me may not work for you, or not necessarily work for others, as I always say. So just get this one in. Usually what happens as well when we have a few heart toppers to do, my husband would do this bit for me, and then it just speeds up the process so that I can start applying them to the topper. And it's the same with any ruffles really, that I'll roll the paste out and then all he has to do is cut them for me. Then I'll just apply it to the cake, or as in this case the heart topper. So I'll put that one over there. Bring that over, move that over there. Glue. Put a bit of glue on there, so making sure that the glue goes on that bit as well. Placing that in with my finger, just gently pushing it on. You don't want to press it too hard so that you're not able to move it if you haven't put it on nice and straight. Just come down here like that. go. Trim. So this is why as well that I tend to cover the hearts in 2 pieces, so that I can see, especially when I'm doing something like this or it's one of the other heart toppers, I need to know that what I've got my halfway point. So here, got that there, and then like that. And then again, just a little bit of a trim, just to curve it round. There we go. I'm going to take the tool between, and then try and straighten it at the same time as well. As long as you have these bits coming down nice and straight, and you can see the straight bit over here as well, and again you need to trim this top bit just a tiny bit. And then we just do it all over again. This is why I say about don't press down too hard when you first put it on, because then if it is out of place, you can just use your finger just to slide it over a little bit. You're just using the same process as we did with the other strips, trimming at the bottom, making sure that it is nice and curved in, and at the top you trim exactly the same as we did. And then using your tool to make sure that the paste is stuck to the topper, and moving it if needed, as you can see at the top here. Remember what I said beforehand, is that it doesn't matter if they're not absolutely perfect. Just when you finish, before you you leave it to dry, just need to want to go back and run the tool just through the gaps a bit, so that these are kind of straight, they're not too bendy. Just see that's just moved a little bit here. Ready for the next bit now. Just trim that bit. Keep applying the glue each time you add a new strip, making sure that it is tucked in nicely, just using your finger and placing them. Trimming both ends before you apply the next strip. So once you've done these a few times, you'll soon get a rhythm going as well, so you'll know how it all works. I can't even remember how many times I've done this topper, but it is one of my most popular ones for the, as well as the heart one that is actually shaped. They're very popular for the wedding cakes. It's just something different as well that people don't see. So even with these being from yesterday, I can still move them slightly just to put them back into line. Remembering to make sure that you trim the bottom edge, and if necessary just take a little bit off with the scissors as well if it's curling around too much, and then make sure you trim the top of it too. Then just use your tool just to make sure it's straight. So making sure that you do use these supports, so the little sponge bits, to put your heart in position so that you can work on it. As I'm getting nearer to the edge of the heart here, I'll just hold that and then just pushing down, because you can see that's just curling over a little bit. So if you just hold it and just use your finger to slide that into place. Same here, it's just starting to fold over. There we go. So you can just push that down. Bring that out just a little bit. You can see I'm just using the tool just to press that icing or the paste down a bit so I can move it a bit more. So you will think when you look at it, actually that looks quite, it looks as though it's deeper than the other ones, but because the heart is shaped, it's going to give that look to it. And that's what we want as well. Then, I'll show you this one, so I can go in like that. And then just push it in like so. Oops. I've squashed them, so that's a good example to show you that they will go back into place. Just keep adding each strip as you go along, using your finger to secure it to the topper and then using the plastic tool just to straighten it out. You will be turning the heart topper around quite a lot, so this is why I always make sure before I start applying the ruffles that the layer that I put on to begin with is nice and hard, or firm, should I say, so you don't dent it. You'll look at this and think it is quite time consuming. Yeah, it is very time consuming, but it is worth it when you see the end result. And remember, you can charge quite a bit for this topper as well. Just a quick check to make sure that they are nice and straight. Not perfectly straight, but nice and straight. So what I'll do now, I should put probably on about 1 or 2 more pieces here, then let this bit set to dry before I start applying it on the other side. So you can see the nice shape of the heart as it's going around, as you're going around. So let's say when we first put these edge pieces on, they started to look a bit thicker, but they don't now, because you can see the natural shape of the heart going as it's following through. So a little tip here for you, that if these do become a little bit curly or out of shape, just run your fingers or between your finger and your thumb so that you're making it nice and straight. Keep just touching it at the bottom. Okay, so that's now ready for me to leave to dry for a bit. Okay, so now this side has dried and these are set, you're going to be starting on this side of the topper. So what you're going to be doing, you're going to do exactly the same, but instead of us when we were holding the topper around this way, we're going to be turning it upside down and we're going to be working that way. So you're doing exactly the same technique with the ruffles or the strips as we put them on to create the ruffles. Just get rid of that bit of that glue there, look. Okay, so I'll just move that over there. I've got some glue on there already. So I'm just going to lift that up. And get that on. And then just gently push it down to get it into place. And then I'm just going to push that down here a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of glue by the cake pop stick as well. So that will go down to there. I'm going to trim that. And then get the scissors. Like so, and then get down to the top bit. That on. Trim that. Let's get your tool. I'm just gonna bring that in a wee bit so you can see here. Press that down just a little bit to make sure it is nice and secure on there for me, and it is. And then down here, that nice and secure. So you can see that these are starting to set. I've just put a little bit, I don't think I had enough glue on there. There we go. So that's your first one on. Now remember, we've already got one on there, so you might think that looks a bit too hard. Remember what I said about earlier when we start to go over like the shaped bit. So now we can see that when I put more layers on, this is going to start coming up like this. So now you've got your first one on, you can start getting the rest of them on. Push that up a little bit. So use your sponges for support. Make sure it is tucked on down there, and then just use your fingers to seal it all the way up. So this is one of the reasons as well why I don't cover the end bits, is so that I can grab hold of it. So when both these sides are dry, I'll be able to grab hold of it like this side, or I'll put it into the cake topper or the dummy cake that I use to fill in the end bits. So this is why I don't go towards the end, so that you can see we're moving the topper around a lot. So at the moment, don't worry about too much of too much movement going on here, because once you've got a few layers on before you let it dry, you can just go over them to make sure that they are where you want them to be.
Okay.
I think I just need to trim that over the end just a wee bit. There we go, so it's in line with the other one on there, look. Okay, so just keep adding your layers. Just see here as well that is just a little bit higher, but like I say, it's going over that shape, the curve bit. So all I'll do is just have to trim that over like so, and then make sure that it is nice and secure. Remember to keep trimming and shaping around the bottom of the heart as well as the top so that pieces aren't sticking up or down too much. It is a lot easier to trim the strips while the paste is still soft, because if you leave it till it's set, there's a good chance that you could actually split the actual strip that you've put on, and it's quite difficult to replace. Probably see here that I'm just using the tiny palette knife, and just so I can get in between the ruffles, just to straighten them out that little bit more. And we'll just cut that on there. Good, next stage. A good tip here is you can have a few of these rolled out, because if they start to set like this, they're not going to go hard again because it is Saraceno, but it just helps you when you're placing it onto the top of that it's not going to start flopping everywhere. So as you can see, it's kind of set in place, and then I can just use my fingers just to push down on the flat bit to attach it to the topper. So you can see what I'm doing is I've push it on there, and then just take my fingers down the bit that's stuck to the topper, and then bring this round just a little bit so that it sticks. You can probably see as well that I'm working over the foam pad, or the egg tray here. It's just that I can be clumsy, so if I do drop it, it's going to land on here. If you're going to work on something like this and you drop it, then you know there's a good chance that you're going to break all your ruffles, so you'll have to start again. So can you see, as we're looking down the heart now, you can see that it's going this way, and then you can see it's coming this way, so it's looking okay. Now and again, just checking that these are nice and straight, not too bent over a bit or touching each other, should I say. So you can see the bottom's got a nice shape to it now, and as well as the top, as we're following through the shape here. So as with the other side, I'm just going to put probably maybe a couple layers, a couple more on here, and then leave this bit to dry, and then do the other part either later to day, say in about 6 hours or so, or I'll probably leave it until the next day. The great thing about making these heart toppers is that you can make them in advance. So if I'm making them, say, about 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding, I would make sure that it was placed into the cake dummy and in a box so no sunlight can get to it, because this would discolour it. Don't forget, when you're cutting more strips, to make sure that when you lift this up, you just take your hands or put it in between your fingers and get off the little roughness down the sides of it, because again, this will show once the paste is dry. Again, placing the strip onto the heart and using your finger just to slightly attach it to make sure that it's not going to fall off as you turn the heart around. Trimming at the top, making sure it's nice and straight, and then trim at the bottom. Just keep applying these layers. Right then, I will leave this to dry now, like I said, probably for about another 6 hours, or I should do it in the morning. So I've tried to leave it as long as I can, and I've always got other jobs to do anyway, but it's nice to get this done quite in advance when I have a wedding cake. So that's what it'll be. It'll just stay like that for now. As I've said before, it's a lot easier to have some of these prepared so you can apply to the heart topper. It just saves so much time instead of doing one at a time. And I'm talking from experience here as well. Okay, so now this side is nice and dry, and they're set hard. We're ready to go onto this side. So we're going to do exactly the same on this side as what we did on the other side here. So we're going to start off on the left of the heart. Getting your glue all the way there. A little bit dusty this has. Making sure the glue's on the cake pop as well. I've got my sponges to go. I'm ready to go here. That I've got that going straight. Okay. So obviously this is going to be a bit trickier than when it was the first time you did this, because you've obviously got your lines, your ruffles already sat in there. So just come in like that. Pull that away. Moved that, but I'll move that back in a second. Come down like so. I'm just going to lift this just to make sure it doesn't stick on. There we go, look. Bring that in, just pull it up just slightly. And just tuck it in like that. Then well, you can see that there's a bit of a gap there. All you need to do is just pull that top piece over like so. That's going to go, and we can sort that out afterwards. And then come down to here, like so. Bring this over. And then just take it about there. And then I just need to remove this bit here as well. So that is on. Now bring that up. Press down in here if need be. Make sure that it is nicely stuck on. And then see this bit here. Put your little palette knife. Just straighten up. Remember, like I said before, don't worry if these do start to bend over, because once you've got a few layers on, or before you leave one half to dry, you can just go back afterwards and just make sure that they're all in place, that they're not curved over. As you can see here, and I've made sure I've stuck that onto the cake pop stick nicely as well. Sponge there to support it. Another tip here, just bring this along like so. When we're going to put the next piece on, I'm going to show you is another tip that you can do, is just cut your piece of your paste that you can see here. So instead of having it straight, have it just cut like that. You may find this a little bit easier to do it this way. And then come in, placing it down. You'll find that you won't have to trim it as much. Oops. Bring that over. It's easier to trim it this end than it is that end. Make sure that's nicely stuck on. And you can see here, look, so all I've got to do is just go down and press that down and then go up. And you can see that, see that bit here, that's nicely joined to the other part there, or the other side should I say. That in. Grab my scissors. So I'm not showing you here, am I? Just push that bit in as well. There. Bring it round just slightly. The scissors. And you can get in there as well and do that bit. And then just remove that. Push that in a wee bit more. Now you can see it's just that little bit longer, so all you need to do is just go around that and just trim slightly. There we go. Stick. And off we go. That's it. You just need to keep applying the strips exactly like you did before on the other side of the heart. But remember to cut the strip at an angle a little bit so that there's less trimming to do on the top bit like there was beforehand. Make sure that when you apply each strip that you are taking it right up to the end so that it meets the other ruffles on the other side, and tuck it right at the bottom of the heart topper as well. Just gently moving the paste so that it is nice and straight, and just checking at the top and the bottom and apply more glue every time you put a new strip on. This is what I mean by attaching the strip right at the top next to the ruffles on the other side. You will find using these sponges as support so you can have the heart at an angle instead of having to lean over to see what you're doing. As you apply more strips to the heart topper, you'll find it's a lot easier now compared to the first side when you weren't too sure about it. The idea is just to make sure that you are tucking them in nice and neat and tight at the bottom, making sure that the paste is stuck to the heart so that it doesn't flop over or it doesn't come out of position, should I say. You will also see as you're working towards the side of the heart, the strips are becoming shorter. So don't cut out a massive piece, just cut out roughly a little bit longer than what you think you're going to require, because it's easier to apply to the heart than a long piece is. So that is fine, because you can see it's going up. Even though it looks a lot taller than this side, it doesn't matter, because the heart, the way the heart is shaped at the top, it's absolutely fine. Remember to keep using these sponges so that you can place the heart at an angle. It's much easier to attach the strips when it's at an angle instead of trying to hang over the heart. You will see as you start to work on around the side of the heart topper that these strips are going to be coming closer and closer together. What you need to make sure is at the bottom, at the top, that these pieces of strips will meet. So just tuck them in a little bit more than you would do when you first started doing them. I'm not too bothered that these have just moved over a little bit, because I can move them again in just a second. The main thing is to get this, because it is round on the end bit, remember, because you're putting a straight bit onto a curved bit, it's not going to go on as easy. So I'm just pulling that down so I can get it there, making sure it's on, which it is. I'm just going to trim this bit here, because this bit is going to get covered anyway. So, and then just push that in so it brings the top of that piece over, and pull it down a bit more. I can just get that back in like that. There we go. So then by the looks of this, all I'm going to do is just trim it like that, and then get that pushed in like so. And I got it straight. I'll just see how much of the end bit I've got to trim off. Like so. It's just a little bit. Let's push these all back into place now, because that's the last piece I'm going to put on until this is dry, so that I can do the other side. I need to have something to hold on to begin with, and of course when we get to this side it will go into the dummy cake anyway. I just want to make sure that's all nice and straight before I leave it to dry. There we go, I'm going to leave that to dry now. Pop that back into your polystyrene dome. Okay, so I'm going to push these bits down just a little bit more to flatten them. But that is looking lovely at the moment. So then I'll just leave that to dry for say like 6 hours or overnight, and then I'll do the other bit. So now the ruffles on the left hand side of the heart are set, you can now start applying them to the right hand side, and you do this exactly the same as what we did before on the other side. Using the piece of foam to support your heart so you can tilt it at an angle. Remembering to make sure that those top pieces and the bottom piece are nicely tucked in and trimmed. Keep applying the strips until you reach the same amount which you can see on the other side. Making sure you keep checking that they're nicely tucked in at the same height as the ruffle on the other side of the topper. You are almost there now, not many more strips to add on before you can leave it to dry before you start doing the side parts of it. And as you can see, it's really starting to take shape now. As you can see here, I have changed the angle of the heart so it makes it easier for me to apply the strip onto it, using the foam pieces to keep it in place. Once you finish this strip, as in you've tied it all up, then the ruffles are nice and straight and you've trimmed all the edges off as in the top and the bottom, place it into a dummy cake for another 6 hours or overnight so that the ruffles are hard, ready for you to start the next stage. Okay, so now both parts of the heart are dry, we're going to be working on this part here. What you want to be doing is placing your heart topper into the dummy cake, as you can see here, at an angle. It makes it a lot easier to apply your ruffles to it while it's in the dummy like this. So this next part is a bit harder than what it was applying the strips to the front and the back. So with your strip being straight, you need to shape that round your topper so that it follows through with the rest of the ruffles that are already on there. Starting at the top, attaching the bottom part to the heart. Doesn't matter if you go over a little bit, this can be trimmed later. Using your fingers just to gently shape the ruffle round the side of the heart topper. As you go round the side of the topper, you will need to pinch the paste in, making a little crease. You can flatten it out quite easily afterwards. Once you get down to the bottom, just gently press the paste in and then trim. Being careful with the scissors when you come to cut this, and using the knife just to gently prise that piece or the extra piece away so that you don't pull off the actual ruffle that's stuck onto the topper. Using the tool to secure the paste, and then just get the knife to remove any lumps that you may have or excess paste. And you can just use your tool just to put the other ruffles back into place where you've been pressing on the heart topper. Just check that it was all nice and straight, and if need be, just use your finger down the sides just to make that piece that you just put on so it does look kind of straight, that it's not too curving over a bit. Just press the base of the ruffle in. I'm just making sure that that top piece is nice and stuck on now. I can see it is sticking up a little bit, but I'll trim that afterwards. So I'm just using the tool, just making sure that it is kind of straight. If it needs to be moved a bit more, then you can see this bit right at the bottom. I'm just going to pull down that just a little bit more. And then I'm just going to trim at the top here. Cut that base bit first. Stick it into the dummy, as you can see here. And then grab the scissors just to trim that top piece off. So now that's nice and secure, dab some more glue on, ready for the next strip that you're going to be putting on, starting at the top just like as we did before. Gently pushing the paste to the topper, and now and again, as you can see, I've made a crease already. That is fine because you want that paste to curve round, and if need be, just fold the paste over a little bit. You'll find this is easier to attach it to the topper as you're working round it. Gently pushing in to get those creases. You will find that the paste will try to flop over or curl over, as you can see here. So just gently go back to the top and just make sure that it's nice and secure so it doesn't fall off. Working down to the bottom and then just marking it again, just like as we did before. Using the knife just to push that paste so it's nice and secure to the heart topper. Using a knife just to cut where the bottom of that strip is stuck to the topper, then place the topper back into the polystyrene dummy. If you're worried that the heart topper may be too heavy and to stop it from toppling over, I just place a weight on the other side of the dummy cake, which keeps it nice and steady. So I'm just going to cut off this bottom piece now, as you can see here, making sure it's the same length of the other pieces that are on beforehand. And then just using the tool just to nicely tuck that in and work my way around to the top, making sure that the paste is secure. Making sure that this is nice and straight, as we have done beforehand. I can see I've dented it a little bit here, so all I'm going to do now is just place my finger beneath the strip and then just run the tool over the top to see if I can fix it. There we go, it's perfect now. Just going to trim this top piece here, and then we can start applying more to the sides of it. We're going to be doing exactly the same as we have done. Apply the glue to the heart topper and the strip from the top, working the way down to the bottom, making sure that it is nice and secure. Just mark it with a knife, cut off the excess paste, as you can see here. Any bits that need to be trimmed off, as in the bottom or the top. Making sure that that paste is firmly stuck on the topper before you cut the excess off. Now we're going to be applying the strips on the opposite side of the topper. As you will see as well, that these side pieces are a lot smaller than the pieces that we first started to apply to the topper. So place your topper onto the foam using the foam pieces to support it, and as usual start from the top with your strip and work your way round. Again, making those little creases in there so that the paste will fit round nicely. And then fold the paste over if necessary, as you can see here, so that it can stick onto the topper easily. Using the tool to press down into that corner piece and then just cut away the excess paste. You can see here that I've cut that paste at an angle. Remember me saying that it was easiest to apply those ruffles on the back of the topper when we started to do it? It's exactly the same when you get into a tight space like this. Then just using your fingers and thumbs just to press that paste into position with some little creases so that it forms that nice curve, as you can see here. Just push into that paste, into that gap right down at the bottom so it fits nice and snug, and then just trim away the excess paste. Using the tool to push that paste down into that gap so that it's nice and snug so it meets with the other ruffle on the other side. So now you've done those two, place your topper into the dummy cake with a weight on it, ready to do the next part. So for this part here, we need to change the shape of the strips because it's quite fiddly getting them in. So where we have the strip here, we're going to cut it. In fact, I'll change it to the other side. You just need to cut it with the knife at an angle like this. And then the bottom piece, you need to cut it a little bit more in, because where the two ruffles are going to meet together, you're not going to have much space. So when you come to place the piece onto the heart, as you can see here, see the lower part of the strip doesn't need to be right in the middle, just as long as you've got that top piece so that it will meet the other ruffle on the other side. So just gently push in the paste to the side so that you know it's not going to fall off as you're working the way round it. Using your finger just to stick the paste onto the topper and then making a little crease so that you can have that shape around the side as you can see here. Just making sure it's stuck on and it's not going to fall off as you're working on it. So as you work your way down the strip, sticking it onto the heart topper, just make a few creases here and there so that you know you can shape that piece of paste round. Just using your finger, because it's a lot easier with your finger because the gap's only small here at the moment. And then just fold the paste over again. So just move that around like that. Just press in just very, very gently, so you know roughly where you've got to cut with the knife. And then just take that in like so. Remember to bring this round. Cut. Like that. And then what we need to do, where that line is where it's halfway, you need to get that stuck on. So I'm going to lift it up a little bit. Fold that over if I can. Might be easier with my hands. Just here. Bring that round. Like so. It may be sticking up just a little bit so we can trim it. I'm just going to pull it down just a wee bit more so that it meets the other one. And it is sticking out just a little bit. That's perfect as it goes there, look, alright, and you can just adjust it like we have done before. But what I'll do, I'll leave it a little bit. I'm not going to fuss around with it too much because I've got more pieces to go on, and then when all that's done, then I'll go back and have a look at it. So I'll just use my fingers there to lovely dent it there, look, so go. Then we get into the few pieces. There's probably only going to be about another 2 each side, and then say one in the middle. So I'll just do that bit now. Again, don't worry about this bit not making it to the end. The most important bit is getting this end piece here up the top. So there it is there, as you can see here. I'll get rid of that fleck thing in a minute. Get it on, get it stuck in place. Push that up a bit. Around. This is the awkward bit of it. Now we've got that on, so I can see there. So I'm just going to cut it just a wee bit longer than what I think I'm going to need, and then get my fingers in there. You see it's starting to take shape around there as well now, so it looks nice. Okay. So same thing on the other side. The strip is cut at an angle, placed in at the top, and you work your way down. Just gently press in with your fingers or your thumb so you know it's attached. So remember what I was saying about the bit in the middle? Don't worry about that at all. So you can see this bit here. I'll just hold up there because we know that we've got to get this bit quite near the top here, so that's why we say we cut that quite at the steep angle. Get it on there. And what I'm going to try and do is just curl it around a little bit, which will help me get it on. Go. And I'm touching the top of this bit here, look, because that's the bit that I know is nice and set. I'm going to try and pull it up a little bit because it has dropped a wee bit. Get it stuck in like so. Again. So on these last pieces here, you can see I've taken some bits out of the strip here. Because the gap is so small, it's easier to cut these pieces out than have to do the creases in it. So if you measure the length that you roughly need, just cut that piece off. So we cut that like this and like so. So stick that piece in, again making sure you get that right to the top, pressing in with your finger, and then just gently shape it with the tool, as you can see here, holding the back of the heart as well, and then just shape the pieces into the gap there. You can see I'm just bending it round slightly, and see where it would have been a crease, I've cut that bit out now so that it can go in nice and neat. You can see that actually the piece is too long now, but it's better to be too long than too short. So just trim off the excess that you don't require. Using the tool and your fingers, tuck that last piece in, nice and neat so that it meets the other ruffle as well. So before I actually stick the piece that I've cut out ready to go on it, I'm just going to measure it with a spare bit of strip that I've got here. Okay, so now we're going to put this piece in, and you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just giving it a little bit of shape. So it's easy to do it while it's in my hands and trying to shape it while it's in that tiny little space we've got there. So I can get that tucked right in here, and you can see the gap's really small even for my fingers. And just using the tool just to push it into position. Bring it round. You can see it's just a little bit too long from what I need, so I just need to trim that piece there. I'll just trim that bit there, look, and then I'll be able to tuck that in nice and neat using the tool. Making sure you've got that bottom part attached to the topper, and just curl it a little bit or bend over the paste a little bit. As you can see, that's going to fit in there nice and snugly now, as you can see. And then so just use your fingers and the tool just to get it nice and tucked in, so that making sure that the gap isn't too big between the two ruffles. Okay, so this next part, you'll be measuring the gap between the top and the bottom piece. So take a bit of spare paste that you have, and just measure the length inside, as you can see here. So that's going to be marked off there. So that's where I need to cut the paste. You can see at the end of this, or the top should I say, that I've made it to a point. So just grab that and try and get that into place, as you can see here. Using your tool just to try and push it in. And try and bend that bottom piece round if you can. It is quite fiddly, as you can see here. Sometimes it doesn't work straight away, so you may need to take the piece of paste out and try and put it back in, or just move it up and down, as you can see what I'm doing here. And it is a bit fiddly. You can see the top bit is just sticking out too much here. So I've just pulled it out, and just to see if I can shape it in my fingers, and then hopefully get it back into position again. There we go. Just curve it a little bit. Like I said before, it's easier to do it in your hands than it is trying to curl it in such a small gap that we've got here. Once it's in place, you can trim any bits that are sticking up, as you can see, just this tiny bit here. So this next piece you're going to be putting in, make sure you got it at the right length, as you can see here. So I've got a piece that I'm going to be cutting off. So at the ends, cut it as a point like we've done here. And then cut that bit at the top, ready for it to go on. And then you need to take little pieces out like I did beforehand, so that we can get a better curl in there when we've got that piece of paste in that gap. Cut it at the other end as well to a point. And then just try it out, see if it fits in, and it's going to fit in okay. Just use the tool to put it in place, holding the heart at the top, as you can see here. And then use the end of the tool just to push it into place right at the bottom, so it's tucked in nice and neat. So now that bit's tucked in nicely there, just want to check if there's any pieces, and you can just see the little bit here that's just sticking out just a teeny tiny amount. So I'll just trim that bit off. Now we just have one more piece to go in the middle here. So just apply a little bit of glue in there. Stick it back into the dummy cake. So we're only going to need one more piece to go into this last bit, as you can see here. So if you measure the piece of paste to begin with, as you can see, that's probably just a little bit too big. So if you cut the ends to a point, as you can see here, as in both ends need to be cut like this to a point. Just gently fold the piece. As you can see, don't press in too much. And then you'll be able to lift it up using the tiny palette knife so you can put it in that gap there. As you can see, I just need to lift it up a little bit more. It's just slipped a little bit there. So just using the palette knife to try and lift it up if I can. Like that, and just slide it up a little bit. There we go, it's in place now then. And because this is the last piece that's going to be going into this bit here, it's okay to use the palette knife because the other tool is a little bit chunky to go in there. And just make sure that the ends meet, as we can see here, and then trim if needed. Making sure that the ends of that last piece you've put in do meet together. Now just to quickly check that we haven't got any pieces sticking up, and I can see one there, so I'm just going to quickly trim it with the scissors and just check elsewhere before I leave this to dry. So now that other side has set, we're ready to start applying the ruffles to this side of the heart topper. We are going to be using the same method as applying these strips to make your ruffles on this side of the topper, exactly the same as we did on the previous side. Shaping the strip of paste before you place it onto the heart topper is easy to put into position when it's just that curved a little bit, as you can see. So it does help as well, if you're not too confident in bending it slightly up in your hand, just bring it to the worktop and just bend it round a little bit to shape it. So you know it's going to go in that little gap there. I think I have got to cut up a little bit more, but we'll wait and see when I get it on there. Again, the length out there, out to here. this out so that I can see better. And now I've got it a bit closer. I just think it just needs a tiny bit of trimming there, as we can see. There we go, and the last piece. Remember, we need to cut them to the point. That will go in. There we go. Just lift that up a bit. So I'm trying to get stuck in, and then just bring this up, and then bring these round a bit. There we go. Of it. Just check everywhere now. Nice shape going round, as you can see here. So that's looking nice, that's looking okay there. We've got a little bit of crack there, but when you look at it at the front, you're not going to be able to see that, so that's fine. And the same with here. So we're going to give this a good 24 hours so it sets nice and hard, because when you insert this into the cake, you're going to be holding the heart like so. So you want to make sure that it is completely dry.